Hey guys, Ethan from Ethan Kogo here, and today I want to go and see the new film Paws of Fury: The Legend of Hank. Now, this movie is basically an animated version of the Mel Brooks comedy Blazing Saddles, and I knew that it has something to do with a film that was coming out a while back called Blazing Samurai, and I thought that was just like another Kung Fu Panda type movie where all the characters are animals and it's like a martial arts movie. So when I saw the trailers for this film, it honestly did not impress me. It looked like a generic martial arts animated movie. And it's a Nickelodeon movie, and Nickelodeon hasn't really been doing a great job with movies these days. So I still went in optimistic because I really wanted it to be a good movie. And by the way, one of the things that really took me by surprise with the trailers is like the cast that they got for this film. I mean, they got like Mel Brooks, like I said, Ricky Gervais, Michael Cera, Gabriel Iglesias, George Takei. Some of possibly the most recognizable actors in Hollywood today. Alright, so what did I think of the film? Well, one thing that really took me by surprise is it's actually kind of a satire of martial arts movies. Like, they break the fourth wall a lot, and some of the characters even like make modern references to things that exist today. Like, I will admit that most of them were shameless, but there were a few that were genuinely hilarious, like the way that they worked them in there. Like, there's a Twitter joke in the movie, and I was all like, seriously? But then there was another joke that was genuinely pretty clever and hilarious. It was a cell phone joke. Basically, there are these characters that are long distance from each other. They can't just call with a normal cell phone because this isn't the time that cell phones would exist. So they have like these soldiers kind of in a line, and basically they play a cell phone in this movie. The Shogun tells one of his cat soldiers something, then they pass it on to the whole line of cat soldiers until eventually it reaches the person that the message is for, and it just kind of goes back and forth. That was genuinely clever and hilarious. Another big pro is the animation. Now, I've heard a lot of people complain about this animation, how it looks low budget and it's not as high quality as a Pixar film or a DreamWorks film. But you gotta remember, this is Nickelodeon. They're gonna cut corners with their animation. And honestly, the animation is still fluent and very expressive. I actually really dug the animation, especially when they did other styles like a comic book type and a 2D type. And honestly, this is pretty high budget for a Nickelodeon movie, if I'm honest. It's not as good looking as Rango, but it's definitely not as gross to look at as Barnyard. But sadly, guys, that's where the positives end. This is a bad movie. This is a badly structured and poorly written film. Now, this is basically the opposite problem that I had with The Bad Guys earlier this year. Whereas Bad Guys was a highly anticipated movie for me that would possibly bring back DreamWorks as a powerhouse animation studio to rival Disney, and it could have been a great film. It had so much potential. I had no expectations for this film, but it still delivered on some really great aspects. Now, honestly, guys, you could have made this story good, but honestly, this was just really messy. Just like The Bad Guys, a lot of the plot points that happen in this film either happen too early or too late. A really big problem with this film is a lot of the character relationships were underdeveloped and they didn't have any impact on me. Like, the relationship between the main character and the mentor isn't very interesting. Like, they only share like a few scenes together and they're very short. They're not really that impactful. Like, the samurai has a tragic backstory, and it's a very different backstory to what we're used to with these types of films. Basically, there's a lot of spoilers for this movie, but you're probably not going to want to see this film anyway. But if you do, then just stop the video, come back and see this review when you watch it. Anyway, the samurai has a backstory where he was sent on a mission to this club, and he thought he was being ambushed by these samurais, but he killed some of them. Turned out to be a surprise party, and he basically ruined the entire surprise party, and that's why he stopped being a samurai. Now, that's different, but like, it's kind of stupid. I mean, I get this is Nickelodeon, but Nickelodeon has showed some intelligent writing before. Another thing that really bugged me is like the relationship between Hank and the villagers. Like, in this movie, cats hate dogs. Like, if a dog even enters in a region of a cat, they'll kill him. Like, that's how much they hate dogs in this movie. And you'd expect that the relationship between Hank and the villagers would kind of be messy, but then it would gradually build up to be a stronger relationship. They would grow to love him as he proves himself more and more and starts saving the day. But that doesn't happen. He defeats one bad guy, and he didn't even defeat him. It was really the old samurai Jimbo, played by Samuel L. Jackson, that defeated the bad guy because he found the weakness that the bad guy had. He was apparently allergic to like peas or something. And he basically throws some peas into his mouth and he's stunned for a little while. And Hank finishes him off. And then he gets treated like a hero, like he's the only one that stopped him. And then he had no help from anybody. But without Jimbo, Hank would have been brutally murdered. And the movie never acknowledges this. And the villagers accept him right away and start giving him gifts. And then after that, he goes to a party and like it's a distraction by the villain. And while that's going on, the village is attacked by ninjas. And right after that, Hank comes back and the villagers are packing up to leave the village. And like, it's treated as not as much of a sad scene as you would think. It's pretty nonchalant. It's not like heavy or anything. Like, Hank doesn't really take full responsibility for the destruction of the village. He's just kind of sad about it, but doesn't realize the seriousness of his actions. And this is the thing that the movie really fails at, making us care about these characters. We haven't gotten any time to grow attached to these characters because everything is going by so fast. The movie is so eager to get to the action and the finale that we don't get to know these characters and we don't get to grow attached to them. So when the sad scenes come, we don't feel anything. We're just kind of going through the motions. The movie is just doing whatever's expected of it. Like, every other movie has done the same formula, so we're gonna do it again. Who gives a shit about the quality? Let's just do it, and audiences will feel emotional at this scene, and we don't have to really give any depth to these characters. We can just hope that the audience grows attached as the movie goes along. And by the time everything is hopeless, the audience will be bawling their eyes out. Well, that's not the case. You have to give these characters more than just a one-note personality. You actually have to give them character. Otherwise, the audience won't give a shit if these characters are sad or not. The relationship between Hank and Amiko, which is like a young person that looks up to the main character, kind of like how the possum girl looked up to Rango in Rango. That relationship really falls flat because they barely share any scenes together. Like, their relationship is so underdeveloped. And again, like, the character hasn't really gotten any time to get to know the main character. And by the time we get to where they have a fallout and she's disappointed in the main character, we don't feel anything because there wasn't really a relationship there. It was just a cliche. It wasn't built upon. It wasn't developed. And that is the main problem that I have with this movie. Now let's talk about the voice acting. I actually thought it was good all around, but there are some complications. First of all, I think that Ricky Gervais shouldn't be cast as a villain because his voice just doesn't have that menace or intimidation that most other villains have, like Scar or Tai Lung. You know, a villain needs a fitting voice for the type of character that it is. You know, like, I think that Tom Hiddleston would have been a better choice to play this character because he can definitely be menacing, but he can also be sly and sneaky, which I think is what they were going for with this character. But he just came across as too monotone and comical to really be intimidated or threatened by him. Michael Cera did a great job voicing the main character, but honestly the main character himself is not really interesting. He's just the same type of protagonist that we've seen in these types of movies, which they do make fun of, and I really do admire the film for trying something different, not doing the same old thing. But even if they acknowledge that it's the same type of character we've seen dozens of times in other films, it still doesn't change the fact that this character is still generic and boring. Mel Brooks as the Shogun was actually a pretty good choice. Whatever role Mel Brooks is given, he always puts his heart into it, and that's what I admire about him. Every single time that he was on screen, he added a lot of energy and personality to the movie. He's one of the few things that is actually great in this movie, so I definitely have no problems with Mel Brooks in this movie. Samuel L. Jackson does a great job voicing his character, but the character himself is kind of shit. I honestly think that Samuel L. Jackson always does a fantastic job when he's given a voice performance, but if the character is shit, then the voice performance can't really do much. But that's not Sam's fault, that's more the screenwriter's fault. Honestly, guys, at first when they were doing all the spoofing and satiring, I honestly thought it was going to be a good movie. The first few minutes of the movie were actually really enjoyable and had a lot of great character build-up. But as it went on, it got boring, stupid, and just not fun to watch. So overall, guys, Paws of Fury: The Legend of Hank is a bad movie. It's not worth your money to go see it in theaters. I would honestly recommend that you go see Top Gun Maverick again, or Thor: Love and Thunder. Just anything but this. This is a waste of time. It's a waste of money. If you really got to see it, wait for it to come out on DVD. But I can honestly tell you this. This is going to be one of those movies that is going to have its spotlight in theaters, but when it leaves, it's going to drift away from everyone's memory, and it's going to leave no impact on the animation industry. I doubt it'll get a sequel because it's doing really badly at the box office and it's getting panned by critics. I will never be watching this again. This is honestly not the worst animated movie, but it's definitely the worst animated movie I've seen this year. Now, I hate Lightyear and the Bad Guys more than Paws of Fury, but the reason why is because those two movies actually had potential and I had high hopes for them. But Paws of Fury, I didn't have any expectation for. I got what I was expecting, and for that, I can't really be mad at this movie because it was just doing what it was showing. But with that being said, I did get some good things out of it, and if Nickelodeon actually put a lot of care into this, I think that it would have actually turned out a lot better. Nickelodeon, I know you can do great movies. Stop churning out these lame pieces of shit. Make something great, like with Rango or Jimmy Neutron Boy Genius. Get back to your glory days. Stop trying to, appeal to kids and kids only. Because we know that you can hit both. That's what you did back then with shows like Hey Arnold and SpongeBob. You hit both the parents and the kids. And you can do that again. But you have to put effort into your movies. So, anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed my review. I strongly recommend that you not waste your money to go see this in theaters. Wait for it to come out on digital. And go see movies that are worth your time. So, anyways, guys, I will see you on the next video. Take care.